AccessTalks, a series of seminars organised by postdoctoral and predoctoral members of the TransMedia Research Group. TransMedia Catalonia is a research group at Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona. A bold circular logo shaped like a purple speech bubble features the word access in large yellow letters and talks in bold white below it. Underneath it says, by TransMedia Catalonia in smaller white text. At the top, a simple white figure with outstretched arms inside a circle represents inclusivity and accessibility.
AccessTalks, Seminar 3, Language Accessibility in Healthcare.
And now that we are all set, let me again give you the welcome to our webinar. And also, I will briefly introduce myself. My name is Aida Villaécija. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the UAB. I am a white woman with dark hair and I'm wearing a brown jumper. My pronouns are she and her. So welcome to our webinar, and today's webinar is titled Language Accessibility in Healthcare. I'm leading today's webinar, but this session is also possible thanks to the work of our team, so thank you to everyone involved. This webinar is part of AccessTalks, a series of seminars organized by postdoctoral and predoctoral members of TransMedia Research Group. TransMedia Catalonia is a research group at the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona working on audiovisual translation and digital and media accessibility. As you know, AccessTalks invites people who work and do research related to the AccessTalk topic. If you have any suggestions on already available materials on the topic of the session, or maybe for future topics or speakers, we're sharing at the end of the talk an online questionnaire, as your opinions are very important to us. This webinar includes two talks by two researchers, Dr. Dara Hochberg from Universitat Pompeu Fabra, UPF, and Dr. Laia Vidal from Universitat de Barcelona, UB. Their research is related to linguistic accessibility in healthcare from different approaches. After both talks, we'll finish with questions and answers at the end, and everyone will remain muted, so please write your questions in the chat box and we'll be reading them out loud for the speakers to answer. So first, let me introduce Dr. Dara Hochberg from UPF. You can start sharing your slides while I'm presenting you, please. Dr. Dara Hochberg from UPF is a multilingual health communication researcher, academic and medical translator, and also EFL teacher whose deafness and lived experience fuel her work on language access in healthcare. The presentation is titled Language Accessibility in Healthcare, Bridging Barriers to Inclusive Care, Multilingual and Sensory Accessible Communication in Healthcare. So thank you so much, and the floor is yours. You have to unmute yourself.
Okay now?
Yeah, it works now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Because I'm working without captions and I can't hear my own voice. So let me know if I'm too loud or too soft.
Now it sounds perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good. So I'll start over again. Thank you, Aida, for organizing the talk and for having me here today. I have been requested to start with a physical description of myself, as well as some context for this presentation. I am a white woman, wear eyeglasses, and have long, light brown, wavy hair. I have had a profound hearing loss since age 1 year and wear a hearing aid in my left ear. Originally from New York, I live in Barcelona. I am a member of TransMedia at Universitat Pompeu Fabra, where I completed my doctorate on written multilingual health communication. I collaborate with fellow TransMedia member Irina Hermosa on transcription apps for people with auditory disabilities. At AccessTalks, I designed an accessible methodology for teaching spoken foreign languages to deaf and hard of hearing learners and have taught English for over 2 years. I am finalizing a multilingual health communication project with the research group in Budapest. Next week, I will begin a postdoctoral project with Grial at Universitat Oberta de Catalonia on language accessibility in healthcare for populations that include people with auditory disabilities. I will tell you more about this project today. My background combines multilingual health communication research, work on deaf and hard of hearing accessibility, and lived experience, which I treat as positionality rather than anecdotal evidence. My research focuses on written and text-based communication in healthcare, particularly where accessibility is assumed rather than empirically evaluated. My slide's not advancing. Now it is. Okay. In the talk, I examine accessibility in healthcare through language and communication, treating language accessibility as an analytical object rather than only a normative goal. While physical accessibility is often prioritized, communication systems shape who can participate meaningfully in care. I'll focus on linguistic and sensory accessibility across healthcare encounters and on how these dimensions can be evaluated and designed more systematically. You might find it interesting to activate the captioning for this presentation if it's not already on. Communication underpins patient safety, informed consent, and treatment adherence. When communication is inaccessible, misunderstandings are not random. They follow predictable patterns that affect decision-making and outcomes. From a research perspective, these are structural effects of system design, and they help explain persistent inequities across patient populations. Accessibility in healthcare is best understood as multidimensional. Beyond physical access, linguistic, sensory, and cognitive accessibility interact across all forms of care. Language functions as a cross-cutting layer in spoken, written, and digital interaction, which makes it central to how care is delivered and experienced, rather than an auxiliary feature. Current communication practices systematically exclude certain groups, including deaf and hard of hearing patients, multilingual users, individuals with limited health literacy, and users of digital platforms that are not designed for accessibility. These exclusions arise from design assumptions about a default patient and often intersect, amplifying their effect. Before talking about gaps, it's important to recognize that many forms of accessibility already exist in healthcare. For deaf and hard-of-hearing patients, this includes sign language interpreters, though it's important to emphasize that only 2%, that's right, 2% of deaf and hard-of-hearing people know any form of sign language. I am among the 98% of this population, the majority, who does not use sign language and relies on the remaining forms of communication accessibility in healthcare, real-time captioning, and access to information in written form. For multilingual patients, solutions often involve medical interpreters, remote interpreting services, translated documents, or cultural mediators. These measures are essential, but their availability, consistency, and quality vary greatly across settings. Many communication barriers are produced at the institutional level. Spoken language dominance remains the norm, while time pressure encourages ad hoc solutions, such as relying on family members or unadapted written materials. Automation is often introduced to improve efficiency, but without clear accessibility criteria, which can reinforce exclusion. Even when accessibility measures exist, patients often cannot rely on them. Interpreters may not be available for short appointments or emergencies. Captioning tools may be used informally, without guidance or quality control. In digital health settings, telemedicine platform, patient portal, automated subtitles, accessibility is often added late, if at all. As a result, patients are still expected to compensate by lip reading, guessing terminology, or avoiding questions. Digital health technologies offer clear benefits, including flexibility and increased reach. However, they also embed assumptions about language proficiency, literacy, and sensory access. When accessibility is not built in from the design stage, digital systems can reproduce existing inequities rather than reduce them. A central point in accessibility research is that accuracy alone does not ensure accessibility. I repeat, accuracy alone does not ensure accessibility. In healthcare communication, segmentation, clarity, terminology density, and cognitive load strongly affect comprehension. A transcript can be technically correct and still inaccessible, which challenges evaluation framework that relies solely on error rate or accuracy metric. Access to text does not automatically lead to understanding. Language accessibility focuses on how information is structured, simplified, and adapted so that people can actually use it. In healthcare, this difference is critical because patients are often stressed, anxious, or processing unfamiliar information. Even small language choices, long sentences, dense terminology, missing punctuation can significantly increase cognitive load. For example, a real-time caption that are technically correct but unsegmented can be harder to follow than a slightly less accurate caption that are clearly structured and paced. This is why accessibility must be evaluated from the perspective of user comprehension, not only system performance. Understanding is the outcome that ultimately matters. These improvements benefit not only deaf and multilingual users, but also older adults, people with limited health literacy, and anyone navigating complex medical information. If you have had the automatic caption on, you probably have noticed issues with them. For example, lack of segmentation and missing punctuation. Most of the real-time transcription tools are designed for academic or corporate situations, not for clinical settings. In healthcare dialogue, transcription often appear as long, unsegmented streams of text with little punctuation and then medical terminology. Critical meaning can be lost, such as negation, condition, or dosage information, which directly affects patient understanding. Misunderstanding medical information is not a minor inconvenience. It affects informed consent, treatment adherence, follow-up care, and patient confidence. From this perspective, textual accessibility should be understood as a component of patient safety. Clear, accessible text reduces clinical risk and supports better health outcomes. In multilingual health settings, accessibility challenges are compounded. Automatic speech recognition systems struggle more with non-native speech, and literal translation often fail to convey meaning clearly. Cultural expectations about how medical information is communicated also influence how patients interpret and act on that information. My postdoctoral research addresses this specific gap between access and understanding. I evaluate real-time speech-to-text tools in healthcare, focusing on accessibility, usability, and clarity, not only technical accuracy. The project is multilingual in English, Spanish, and Catalan, and designed around inclusive research practices using textual data and participatory validation. The aim is to move from ad hoc use of tools to evidence-based guidance for inclusive healthcare communication. Research indicates that improved language accessibility supports patient safety, autonomy, and trust. However, these benefits depend on systematic evaluation rather than assumption of inclusivity. Evidence-based guidelines are necessary to ensure that technologies and communication practices align with accessibility principles in real clinical settings. Inclusive communication systems require accessibility by design and sustained interdisciplinary collaboration. Linguistic expertise, technological development, healthcare practice, and patient perspective all need to inform how communication systems are designed, evaluated, and implemented. To conclude, language accessibility is a core analytical dimension of healthcare accessibility. Communication structures shape who can participate safely and autonomously in care. Accessibility research plays a key role in identifying these structures and in supporting the development of healthcare systems that are more equitable and inclusive. Thank you, and I look forward to Laia's presentation and our discussion.
Thank you so much for your presentation. We have now Dr. Laia Vidal. Let me share the slides first. So, Dr. Laia Vidal Sabanés is a lecturer at the Faculty of Education of the Universitat de Barcelona, UB. She is also an external researcher in the EULATERM group at Universitat Pompeu Fabra and a member of the AR Text team at the Universitat Nacional de Educación a Distancia, UNED. Laia's presentation is titled From Complexity to Clarity, Terminology-Based Strategies for Plain and Patient-Centered Health Communication. And now the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Laia Vidal Sabanés, and I'm a white woman with blonde hair, and today I'm wearing a black jumper. I'm speaking from my office, and behind me you can see a blurry bookshelf of books. First of all, I would like to sincerely thank the organizers of the AccessTalks for inviting me, especially Aida Villaécija for her warm support and help through the process. It is a truly pleasure to be here and to share this work with you today. I see some colleagues here who are already familiar with the work I've been invited to present, and nevertheless, I hope the talk will be just as engaging. I would also like to apologize in advance, as I woke up not feeling very well this morning. So if at any point I need to pause briefly during the talk, I hope you will excuse me. Well, today, with the title of my talk that you can see on the screen, I would like to explore how terminology, which is often perceived as a barrier, can actually become a bridge between specialized medical knowledge and patients. Okay. We can. Oh, thank you. Let me begin with a simple idea. When patients leave a medical consultation, they do not only receive treatment, They also receive information, and understanding that information is part of the treatment itself. Today's patients want to be informed, they want to understand the diagnosis, the options, the treatment, and they want to participate in decisions about their own health. However, medical discourse is highly specialized, and medical texts are conceptually complex and full of technical terms of different kinds. Terminology concentrates knowledge, and that is its function, but that same density can create distance between healthcare professionals and patients. Okay? So the key question guiding my work is, how can we turn terminology from a barrier into a bridge? Okay. To address this challenge, we use several strategies, all of them combined with the methodology of terminological work proposed within the framework of communicative theory of terminology by Dr. Maria Teresa Cabré. Depending on the project, these strategies, on the project I will explain you, these strategies are applied in different ways. These include the application of plain language principles, the use of infographics as a multimodal source to organize and communicate specialized knowledge, and more recently, the exploration of generative artificial intelligence. In addition, although I will not be able to go into detail about these aspects today, two elements are essential across all our projects. One is multidisciplinary collaboration. We work with healthcare professionals who validate the content from a scientific perspective, designers who structure and visualize the information, and linguists who analyze and reformulate the terminology. The other is user involvement, both in the creation phases and in the evaluation stages. I will now briefly explain some of these concepts as they are a key to understanding how these strategies are later implemented in practice. First, our study object, the terms. And according to the communicative theory of terminology, a term is not just a word, it is a linguistic, cognitive, and communicative unit that functions within specialized discourse. Okay. In our work, the focus, sorry, because I had a problem here. When we say that we combine the strategies with terminological work, it refers to the systematic analysis, organization, and representation of specialized knowledge through the terms. Okay. In our work, we focus especially on what we call terminological treatment. That is the set of linguistic and discursive strategies used to clarify specialized terms while preserving their specialized meaning. For example, definitions, clear synonyms, representations through images, and so on. And finally, this connects directly with plain language, if we can. Yeah, this connects directly with plain language. According to the International Plain Language Federation, communication is in plain language if its readers can easily find what they need, understand what they find, and use that information. If we focus on wording, terminological treatment plays a crucial role. Okay. Today I will focus on how we have applied these strategies in two projects, one already completed and another one currently in progress. Some of these strategies are implemented in one project while others are applied in the other. Okay, let's start with the breast cancer terminological infographic. This source is aimed at breast cancer patients and is available in Catalan. The project originated in my PhD research and later received funding from the Catalan Foundation for Research and Innovation, la Fundació Catalana per la Recerca i la Innovació. And the objective was very clear. It was to make the terminology related to breast cancer treatments easier to understand without simplifying the medical reality. Here you can see a QR code that allows you to access the infographic in case you would like to explore it and navigate the source while I'm presenting it. Okay, why did we choose the infographic gen? We know that within the field of graphic medicine, infographics are recognized as innovative tools that facilitate comprehension and learning in healthcare contexts. They allow us to organize medical knowledge visually, hierarchically, and currently. Especially, they simplify complex information. They combine text and image inseparably, and they present information through a structured narrative. Okay. Why is it, why do we call it a terminological infographic? We call it a terminological infographic because terminology forms its backbone. On the one hand, the methodology combines the phases of terminological work with the design stages of infographic creation. That it means that first we build a corpus of specialized text about breast cancer treatments. From this corpus, we extracted key terms, and these terms were not added afterwards. They structure the narrative of the infographic from the beginning. And on the second hand, terminology treatment was applied in all the terms through different strategies. Okay, the different strategies applied were accessible definitions through a green dictionary icon, as you can see here on the screen, synonyms, examples, and visual explanations. And well, often we combined some of these techniques. So the goal was not to eliminate terminology, it was to clarify it. And so the terminology remains present, but it becomes understandable. Okay, the source I'm presenting you now has a multi-layered structure. There is one main infographic presenting all breast cancer treatments. Then each treatment has its own specific infographic. Each of these infographics answer key questions such as what is the treatment, how and when it is administered, what are the side effects, and this visual hierarchy supports comprehension and reduces cognitive overload. Here I'm gonna give you some examples, but you can navigate on the source so you will be able to see how it works better. So this first screen shows you the main screen of the infographic, which gives access to the specific infographic of each treatment. Let's say now we click on surgery, for example. Okay, here the infographic explains how the surgery is performed, why and when it is recommended, and whether it is conservative or involve removal of the whole breast. Now, in the next screen, you can see that if we select, for example, the lumpectomy dictionary green icon, the definition and synonyms appear. Including synonyms is important. They are ordered from most to the least frequent according to healthcare professionals, since patients are likely to come across these different terms in the different documents they receive about their condition. And the final screen I'm showing you corresponds to the side effects of chemotherapy, color-coded from most to least common, and it works the same way for all the other treatments. And before moving on the next project, I would like to point out that this infographic was evaluated with patients, and the results show comprehension levels above 90%. Okay. Now, let me move on the second project, the Plain Language Cardiology Glossary. This is an ongoing project aimed at patients with cardiovascular diseases and their families, and it is being developed in Catalan and Spanish. It is part of my postdoctoral Margarita Salas Fellowship, funded by the Next Generation UF program, and the research has been carried out at Pompeu Fabra University and within the Artex Research Group at Universitat Nacional d'Educación a Distancia. And the project has also received funding from the Catalan Foundation for Research and Innovation. Okay, the objective of this project is to create a glossary of cardiology terms in Catalan and Spanish that includes clear term synonyms and plain language definitions. What makes this project particularly innovative is the integration of the synergy of terminological work, plain language principles, and generative artificial intelligence. So, what are our findings and what is the current stage of this project? Well, we conducted a contrastive study between a traditional glossary created by the specialist point of view and the outputs generated with ChatGPT following the same phases of terminological work. Our preliminary findings show that in term extraction, AI does not yet reach expert-level precision. However, it can help generate initial term lists. In synonym generation, AI sometimes proposes variants that appear clearer than those found in specialized sources. And when selecting the clearest synonym, AI often prioritizes more transparent alternative. So we are currently focusing on writing plain language definitions and evaluating whether AI can produce definitions that are accurate, understandable, and lexicographically sound. And the next step will be the evaluation with patients, because clarity must always be validated by users, as I said before. Okay, the platform will be simple and intuitive. Each entry will display different term variants referring to the same concept, as you can see in the next screen. Thank you. For example, myocardial infarction and heart attack, and the clear variant is highlighted. Here you can see all the words in all the terms in Catalan. And on the right, a plain language definition explains the concept in accessible terms. The aim is not to replace specialized terminology, but to provide patients with understandable entry points. Okay, to conclude, both projects share several core contributions. First, they are multidisciplinary. Accessible health communication requires collaboration between linguists, healthcare professionals, and designers. Second, they are user-centered, as I said at the beginning. Comprehension cannot be imposed, so it must be tested and validated with real users, the real target. And third, they have a real social impact. These are not only academic proposals, they are practical sources designed for real patients. And ultimately, these projects show that terminology does not need to be an obstacle. With appropriate strategies, it can become a bridge. And in healthcare, that bridge might be as important as any prescription, because understanding is part of the healing. And if we can pass the thank you. If you would like more information, you can take a look at this recent publication. The first one refers to the first project, the second one, second project. And also, you can explore a range of health resources for patients available through the EULAMED portal. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Okay, now we have 15, 16 minutes for questions and answers. So please remember to remain muted, and I'll be reading the comments or the questions that you have in the chat. So let me check. Remember that you can share your thoughts, any comments, materials you want to share with us. Feel free to write down anything in the chat box. Okay, you have one comment from Mark Rodriguez. He says, "Good morning. My name is Mark Rodriguez from the CAPS Federation. First of all, thank you very much for holding this seminar. The presentation has been truly enriching, and we are glad that these topics are being discussed and in these debate spaces. We would like to take advantage of this chat to give you a little context about us and send you documentation that we believe may be interesting to you related to the topic of this seminar. So thank you so much, Mark, to share information about the Federation. And I see that a lot of materials and reports that you have been working on. So thank you so much. For all the participants that are connected, you can read all the information that he has sent and to download the reports and check the materials. Thank you so much, Mark. Okay, we have one question from Katerina Tsaosi. She says, thank you both, very insightful. I would like to ask Amy how she believes cultural mediation could be accounted for in speech-to-text technology, if possible at all. So, Amy, if you can unmute yourself and answer her, thank you so much.
Okay, need to unmute myself.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, cultural mediation is intended for people who need language access. So I'm referring to people whose first language is not the language that is used, the primary language that is used in the healthcare setting. If they have limited knowledge of that language, then a cultural mediator may be called in to help interpret the language differences as well as cultural differences. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, she says, yes, thank you. Now we have another question for Laia Vidal from Sarah Ann McDonough. She says, I understand your focus is on language simplification, but have you also explored how cultural differences impact healthcare accessibility, particularly for migrant communities?
Thank you very much, Sarah. I'm glad you asked this question because this is on our future work. We know that there is a large amount of diversity, and we didn't explore yet how it would impact. Well, we would like to explore how language simplification impacts, and for example, in migrant communities. There have been some works on that from the Artex team where I collaborate, but they are not published yet. So I personally didn't work on that issue. It's in my future works, but my colleagues did work on that. But as I'm telling you, it's not published yet, so I don't think if I'm able to give the results. But thank you very much.
She says, great, looking forward to the future work in this area, and thank you. Thank you, Laia. Well, while we are waiting for other questions or comments, I have one question as well for Dr. Laia Vidal. For the project about the breast cancer infographic, I was wondering how the terms were selected. I think that you said something like 200 terms were selected with, or that had some dictionary entry, but I was wondering, how did you select them? Which criteria, like by frequency, by actual patient concerns, or a clinical decision from experts? If you can talk about that, thank you.
Yeah, it was like a mix of some strategies. As I explained, we created a corpus of different breast cancer texts, and we extracted the terms from this corpus with the assessoration from specialists, from oncologists and nurses. And we can say that we have 211 terms have an entry in the dictionary. These are the terms we call the key terms, the terms that the specialist said that they have to be there. But of course, there are other terms in the infographics that they didn't consider them key terms, but they are explained within the text. Some of them we use examples. For example, for instance, in the case of the chemotherapy drugs, we used examples. We thought that it would be more easier to understand with some drugs examples. And others we use, as I said, images. I don't know if I answered your question, but I wanted to make sure that it's clear that we work in all this process. We work with the healthcare professionals, so they had an important role in taking all the terms from the infographics, and then we structured them as a narrative, also with their help.
Thank you so much. Okay, so there's another comment. This is for Laia. Okay, Amy is asking you for your email, so you can read all the comment on the chat. And I also have one question for Amy, Dr. Amy Dara Hochberg. When you talked about your postdoctoral research, can you explain us a little more about how you manage multilingual contexts? Thank you. You have to. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay, so you can hear me now.
Yes.
Okay. So multilingual context, they would be in 3 different subcorpora. So that's the most simple explanation. There would be 3 corpora, a Spanish one, an English one, and a Catalan one, and I would be managing each of them separately.
And the corpora will be from an external source?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much.
So I would be getting the choices from clinics, healthcare setting, as well as from the users themselves, if they're willing to share whatever they have with them. If they use an app that saves the transcripts, for example, with their permission, of course.
So it's actual real data.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Which is the best thing, because it's the most organic way to get it to base a result on real life situation.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you so much. So if there's no more questions or comments, yeah, we have one more question from Ekaterini Chausi. She says, Laia, a quick question for you too. How do you select images for infographics? Any standardized image corpora, visual dictionaries?
Nope. The designers made the images. In the article I show you at the end of my presentation, there is a section that explains exactly how images were created, because some of them were more metaphoric and some of them were more metonymic. Depending on the difficulty of comprehension of that specific term, on its transparency, we could say.
She says that she will check it out, and thank you. So, well, we can end with this last question. And thank you all for your questions and comments. As you know, your opinions are important to us, so we kindly ask you to share your thoughts about this webinar. You can find the questionnaire link also in the chat in a few seconds. Here it is. And you can also read the QR code in the slides. Please answer the questionnaire, as it will take you just a couple of minutes. This seminar is part of the activities of the AccessCat Network, and is supported by the Department of Research and Universities of the Government of Catalonia. And before you leave, we have one announcement to you all, and is that the next webinar will be the 21st of May from 11 to 12:30 Central European Time. And it will be titled The Accessibility Paradox, Navigating the Intersection of the EU AI Act and the European Accessibility Act. So save the date and see you soon.
AccessTalks. More information at https://webs.uab.cat/transmedia/accesstalks/